It's hard to imagine a Saturday morning without huffing and puffing around 5 kilometers of our local park, but there was a time when the very thought of waking up early at the weekend to go running would never have appealed. That was until I went to my very first park run and my life changed forever. Hello and welcome back to The Vegan Runner, and welcome to a very special video for me, my parkrun story. A little over 5 years ago I stumbled across this quirky little thing called parkrun, a free weekly timed event for runners and walkers in parks and green spaces all over the world. I signed up, I printed off my barcode and turned up for my first event. Now, ever since, I've been a parkrun fanatic, and in this video I'd like to share with you my parkrun story, how it all began and how it's really changed my life ever since that first event. Grab yourself a hot drink, get yourself comfy, it's story time. Now, throughout my life I've been a runner of sorts, so from before I could walk I was kicking a football around, and up until I was around 18 I played for a local football team. Running's obviously a huge part of football, but it's more kind of like on the periphery of what I was focusing on anyway. So at training and things, we'd usually do a few laps of the football field, maybe some sort of light intervals or something like that. But in matches, there's a lot of sort of intense sprints and there's a fair bit of running. But running for me, anyway, was it something that kind of needed to be endured rather than enjoyed. And it was just kind of on the periphery of football, and wasn't really the main thing that I enjoyed about playing football. And throughout my teenage years, I'd go out running, sometimes with my older brother, a couple of miles or so around the village, on and off as the whim to get a little bit fitter took us. I stopped playing football when I left home for university, and with it, completely stopped running. And again, maybe sort of get into running for a couple of weeks or months on and off over the next 10 years or so, but never really taking it seriously, never doing it long enough to see any real rewards or for it to get any easier or enjoyable. Now, it wasn't really until I hit my early 30s, I'd been teaching for some time, I wasn't looking after myself in terms of fitness, and the weight had really piled on. And one day I realised that I needed to do something in order to get myself in shape. I was playing netball, a netball match with colleagues almost twice my age who were running laps around me. It was a bit of a wake-up call. I had been doing a little bit of strength training, but cardio was definitely my Achilles heel. About 12 months prior to me getting into running, Rachel had started, and we had bought a treadmill for her to use during the winter. So in secret, I started running for 30 minutes or so, 2 to 3 times a week in secret. I didn't even want Rachel to know for some reason until I started to lose a bit of weight, or until I kind of got into it. I suspect I didn't really want anyone to know, just in case it was a sort of short-lived thing, and there was a real kind of fear of failure about not being able to kind of stick with it and achieve my goals. I was really determined to get fitter and was starting to enjoy my treadmill adventures when I came across something called parkrun. Up until that point, it hadn't really been on my radar. I vaguely remember seeing a couple of items on the news where a kind of bemused reporter from the BBC would ask a park runner why they'd wake up on a Saturday morning and go running in the park, and then I would almost instantly forget about it. But for whatever reason, in that moment I googled parkrun and started to find out what it was really all about. We checked the events map, found our nearest parkrun, and confusingly it was at a place called Park with an E, and it was only 25 minutes away, and so we made the commitment to get up early next Saturday and give it a go. I remember kind of nervously pulling into the car park thinking, what are we doing? It's early, I'm still tired, haven't really woken up yet, there's going to be loads of serious runners here. But we were greeted by friendly volunteers who made us feel really welcome and pointed us in the direction of the start line. Now, we had no idea what the course was like, but knowing Devon, we knew it'd have a fair few hills, and at this point I had no idea what even trail running was, so I just rocked up in my cheap and cheerful Asics. I think they were about £30 or something like that. They had about 1 millimetre of grip left on the soles. They were years and years old. And we were running a little bit late, so when we turned up at the start line, we missed the first timers briefing, but caught the tail end of the main briefing where people were celebrating one another's achievements. So like people were reaching 50 park runs, 100 park runs, some even 250. I couldn't wrap my head around the time and commitment it would take to run that many park runs, and enthusiastically joined in with the clapping, especially when I found out that one of the milestoners had baked a cake for everybody at the end. But still feeling quite nervous, we thought we would settle ourselves right at the back of the pack with several buggies and dogs. I had no idea what kind of time we'd finish in, and I didn't want to hold anyone back, but looking around, there were at least about 100 people there that morning, and what struck me most was that there was a handful of really serious keen runners with all the gear, but most people looked a bit like us from all walks of life, so far from looking like the elite starting line of that London Marathon that I had pictured in my head. Instead, the young and the old and everyone in between were all standing side by side, waiting for that whistle that would start us all off. And before we knew it, we were running, navigating our way around dogs and leads and weaving in between like pushchairs. We flew off the starting line and down a pretty steep hill, and it was an amazing feeling to be running with so many other people. A first for me, as I'd never been a part of any running event before, and those first few minutes were brilliant. And then we hit the hill, and if you've ever run at park before, you'll know not too far from the start is a whopping great big hill. It's got to be one of the steepest of any park runs in the country, and it's pretty long too. Only a handful can run up it. Most people stagger up it, hoping to see the top as soon as possible. And once we made it up that mini Everest and we caught our breath, we were off once more through beautiful autumn woodlands, crunching our way through the leaves and thinking what an awesome way to start a Saturday. On every corner stood a volunteer, pointing us in the right direction and giving everyone encouragement. I couldn't believe so many people would give up their Saturday morning to come out and stand in the cold to make sure that others could run. And it's a really special part of what makes parkrun so awesome. The course at Park is one of the more undulating in the country, but offers spectacular scenery in all seasons. From panoramic views of far-off valleys to crunchy autumn leaves and foxglove-laden summer glades, it has a little bit of everything, and it's a great introduction to trail running too, something that has now become a firm favourite of mine. I've many fond memories of that first park run, the marshals encouraging you, the feeling of camaraderie and a shared sense of trying to accomplish a goal. But coming down that finishing straight has got to be one of the fondest. Our biggest running accomplishment to date was complete, and behind us we were met by a small crowd of smiling, happy people, clapping and cheering and encouraging everybody to finish strong. Across the line, barcode scanned, our first parkrun in the bag, and smiles all around. We were even more delighted to find out about an unofficial parkrun tradition, which was to head to the cafe afterwards for coffee and cake and swap running stories, achievements and stories from the trail that day. Suddenly we found ourselves immersed in a positive and welcoming parkrun family. A little later on that morning we received the results email. Unbelievably to me, we'd finished about halfway up the table. I was certain we were going to be last when we signed up, but I now know that's impossible at parkrun. Anyone who runs or walks never finishes last, as you always have a couple of tail walkers at the back, making sure everyone is okay and encouraging everyone along. And it was gazing at that results email that that little competitive running seed was sown. My mind was racing with ideas for how to run it that little bit quicker next time. So I started thinking, well, I bet if we didn't start right at the back and do all of that weaving at the start, we could probably finish a little bit quicker. I wonder if we warmed up properly, then that starting hill won't be such a shock to the system. And I saw some people with special shoes that looked really grippy. If we had those, we might feel a little bit better about running down some of the steeper hills. And that kind of things, those kind of thoughts just kind of started to come. Now initially we had suggested that we would do parkrun just once a month, but we were back the following week, and the week after, and the week after that, and so on until a Saturday morning without a parkrun just didn't feel right. Parkrun had awoken in me a competitiveness that had laid dormant for my entire life. It was something that I haven't felt for any other sport before, and I would never be the same again. And the crazy thing was, I wasn't competing against other people, but I was competing with myself. I wanted to run that little bit faster, not because I wanted to beat Johnny up ahead, but because I wanted to beat my time or position from last week. And the only way to do that, as I discovered, was to start running a little bit more throughout the week. And gradually I started to take running a bit more seriously. I found a 5k training plan that promised to improve my time, and I loved the little bit of progress I was making each week. And all of the results were recorded on the parkrun website, so I could easily look back and see how far I'd come. It was from then that I really got into running. Now, another thing that sticks in my mind from those early parkrun days is this. Our local course at Park is kind of a like distorted figure of 8 loop sort of thing. So you can see the faster runners come back towards you sort of at around about the halfway point or so. And seeing them come blazing past with just as much grit and determination on their faces as everyone else was just an inspiration. And I remember thinking, one day I'll be up there leading the charge. And it drove me on to keep training, to learn about running and running shoes and trail running and tempo paces and negative splits and hill running techniques, how to pace yourself at the start of a run and not go off too fast, how to warm up and cool down properly. I learned about so-called easy runs and long runs. I started entering local races and I was just absolutely loving it all. And it quickly kind of snowballed. Wanting to get that little bit faster running meant I'd make more positive choices for my health in other areas. My diet got a little bit better, I started drinking a little bit less, and gradually I started to feel those little changes begin to add up. It took a little while, a lot of mistakes and lessons, along with consistent training and a bit of luck, but in June of 2019, about 18 months or so since my first parkrun, I finally collected that 0001 token. Now, parkrun isn't a race and no one except you really cares about your position or time, but the journey I had been on to collect that token, the improvements and experience that I had to get there, was just mind-blowing to me. I had dreamt of that moment, and here it was, first person across the line that week, and I thought, if I can achieve this, what else could I achieve? And I started to realise that I was only really limited by what I thought I could accomplish and by how much I was willing to push myself. Other dreams and goals started to kind of percolate and become a little more realistic. Maybe I could run a marathon. What about maybe an ultramarathon? The power of parkrun and its effect on your physical health cannot be understated, but its effect on your mental health is where the power of parkrun really comes into its own. Now, until recently, I was a teacher. I loved my job, but as anyone who has worked in an education setting before knows, it's a very demanding, high-pressure job. The hours are really long, anywhere between 50 and 70 hours a week, quite typical. There's very little in the way of breaks, and you spend a lot of your weekends planning and marking and preparing for the week ahead. There's a huge amount of stress involved, and to me, parkrun became this little ray of light at the end of the weekly tunnel. This golden beam of sunlight where it was just myself and 100 or so other enthusiastic runners of all different ages, where it was just completely up to you how you want to run or walk. You can let fly and try to go for a PB, or you can just take it easy and enjoy the ride. It's your parkrun, and it was my time to forget all of life's pressures and worries, and I knew that it would be there for me every Saturday morning, no matter what happened. You were always welcomed, encouraged and congratulated, and it really got me through some dark and difficult times. It became my weekly therapy session, 3.1 miles of treatment, a remedy to the stresses and strains of life. What else in our world happens every week for free, brings whole communities together, children, adults and grandparents, is fantastic for fitness and models the very best in humanity, in all of the volunteers and the people who are pushing themselves to be the best version of themselves. Where else does that happen except at 9 AM on a Saturday morning at your local park? All for free. It truly is a wonderful thing. And it's fired up a love and a passion for something that I want to do every day. It's fired up a love and a passion for something that I want to help others to find. Parkrun was the hook, it got me, and I've been in love with parkrun and running ever since. In fact, parkrun was the inspiration for this channel. Now, initially I wanted to make videos that showed off the awesome parkrun courses that we have here in Devon, and then the ideas for the rest of the channel kind of grew from there. And now here we sit with over 2,000 subscribers, all of Devon's parkrun courses filmed, and a handful of Cornwall's on the books too. Now that's my parkrun story, or at least the opening chapters. I hope to be parkrunning and involved with parkrun for many years to come yet. I really want to use this platform as well, this channel, to reach as many people as possible and hopefully bring them into the parkrun family. It's one of the reasons I've filmed every parkrun course, and I'm trying to work my way around the rest of the country's 1,133 courses to show people what it's like, show off the beauty of our amazing parks, to show new runners that you don't have to be leading the charge and a super fit elite athlete, to show everyone that parkrun is for them as much for everybody else. It doesn't matter where you are in your fitness journey, parkrun can and will help you to make a positive change to your life. That's why I've shared my parkrun story, and I would love to hear yours. If you'd like to share your parkrun story, drop it down below, drop me an email, reach out to me on the socials, and you know, I'll put the email on the screen now and we can work something out, hopefully to get your story out there and hopefully inspire more people to take up parkrun. And I'm hopeful that this is the start of a series of videos that will just show the world why parkrun is so fantastic and why they should get involved. Thanks for watching, and until the next one, be the best you.